Alright guys, I got some DC stuff to talk about here, such as can Superman make $1 billion? Look, we got a standee that's out in the wild here we're going to talk about, and some Supergirl stuff. So let's buckle down, let's get into it here. Alright, so first off, let's look at this standee. I'm guessing this is out in the wild. I don't know if this is over in a convention. I don't know if it's in theaters, but this is a cool standee. We know that the marketing for Superman has begun. It is out there. People are going to start seeing things like this in the wild, at conventions, at theaters, things like that. It's happening. The marketing is out there. People are going to start seeing things for Superman. This is exciting. And let me tell you, this standee is pretty badass. Look at it. It's cool looking. It is so cool. The one thing that I've always complained about, specifically during the DCEU phase of DC films, was how bad the marketing has always been for Warner Brothers and DC. It was always terrible. I never thought that they would be able to rectify that. So far, they've done a pretty good job with Superman marketing, I think, but we've seen very little marketing for it. This has been really good so far. The trailer was phenomenal. This standee is great. The posters have been great. Granted, I was not a fan of the first image that we got of Superman. I thought that was really bad. I've said that many, many times. But you're not going to hit with everything. There's going to be things that you miss with, obviously. You just can't hit with everything. But I think that they've done a really good job with the marketing so far. So I hope that it continues. Things like this, things like that teaser trailer. If they keep moving in this direction, without a doubt, it's just going to keep getting fans more and more and more excited for what's to come on July 11th. And here's the thing, guys. Look, I know that this doesn't mean anything. I know that this doesn't mean that it can't change, but the fact of the matter is July 11th is the date. And I know a lot of people, a lot of naysayers keep saying, you need to change the date of Superman. It can't go against Fantastic Four. It can't go against Jurassic World. Look, it's not changing its date. It's not changing its date. It's sticking there, and as it should. As it should. I think it's going to do fantastic in that date. But before we get into that and if it can make $1 billion, this next story is exciting. Supergirl, Millie Alcock herself, will appear in Superman. Look, what was it, back in August, September, October, something like that. I mentioned on my show, on my channel here, that Millie Alcock was most likely going to be in Superman. It was because she was at the one tennis match, or whatever it was, the US Open tennis match, where she was sporting long, dyed blonde hair. And it was kind of like, well, that's not her normal hair color. That's odd. And it was kind of like, I bet you, hey, it was shortly after the filming of Superman, and it was kind of like, hey, she's probably, her hair's dyed. It was probably because she was in a scene or two for Superman. And sure enough, here's the confirmation from the Hollywood Reporter. Again, is this from James Gunn? Technically, no. Is it from Peter Safran? Technically, no. But I think we can take this as a pretty solid amount of evidence that, yeah, this is happening. Millie Alcock, Supergirl, is going to be in Superman. And also from the teaser, a lot of people were trying to pinpoint, they were pulling, there's a lot of people who think that in that picture of Kellic, who's on the ground, there's an image in his head that it's Supergirl, whatever. Here's the thing. There are so many people out there who are mad about this. They're like, how many people are they going to stuff into this movie? I've said it. James Gunn has said it. First off, James Gunn has said many times, this world is full of metahumans. This world is full of other characters. Every movie is full of characters. That's how it is. The problem right now is, and I'm not bringing this up because I gotta bring up Zack Snyder. No, I'm bringing this up because it's the people who are complaining about this are truly Zack Snyder fans. And they're bringing this up because, yes, there were complaints back in 2016, 2015, 2016, leading up to Batman vs. Superman and Batman vs. Superman. Like, you're rushing this story. They're rushing this story. They're putting Wonder Woman, Aquaman, blah, 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 everything into a Batman vs. Superman movie, or a Batman Superman movie. Now, let's get this straight. All right, first off, the complaints back then were for a couple reasons. One, leading into it, people were so dead set on the Marvel way. Let's not forget that. People had this perception because of the way Marvel was doing things that you had to do it the Marvel way. That's just the way it was then. And whether right or wrong, that's how the perception was for the superhero genre at the time in building a universe. I didn't believe that. I didn't think that that's the way it had to be built. I always thought, hey, there should be different ways that you handle this because you can't just do it one way. You're just going to get stale and it's lazy. So that's number one. Number two, the complaint then became, once people saw Batman vs. Superman, was it wasn't necessarily that it was just stuffed. It was that they were not utilized well. It felt forced in some ways. Putting these characters in there, rushed, putting the logos for Cyborg, Wonder Woman, Flash in a computer. Like, what was that? Like, how do you know what these logos are? Like, how did Lex Luger, wrestling on the mind, Lex Luthor know what these logos were? Like, it's ridiculous. So there was many complaints, but you jump to today, 2025, James Gunn has already explained that, one, metahumans exist in this world. Two, sure, Superman's going to know these metahumans. These metahumans are going to be involved with the everyday ongoings of this world. If there's monsters attacking, if there's issues going on in this world, these metahumans are going to be involved. So that's what's going to happen. Supergirl is most likely going to know Superman. Now, we don't know this story. We don't know the movie. We don't know how involved Supergirl's going to be. We don't know why she's there. We don't know how involved these other heroes are going to be. But James Gunn has also said that this is very much a Superman story. This is a Superman story. Take that with James Gunn is a damn good writer. He knows how to write an ensemble cast. He knows how to write a movie with multiple characters, but also have a main character and have a focus on a main character. You don't need to worry about it. Like I say all the time, when people start to complain about James Gunn and say things like this, they start to spread this misinformation, and they start to spread misinformation and lies because, well, they're just trying to find ways to hate on James Gunn, or more ways to spread hate about James Gunn. And it's pointless. It's ridiculous. This is exciting news. The fact that we get to see Millie Alcock as Supergirl before Supergirl in 2026 is exciting. The fact that we get to see all of these heroes and all of this world building in a very clever way is exciting because it doesn't need to be done the Marvel way. It doesn't. Like, as long as it's well written, as long as it's done well, it doesn't matter how it's done, as long as it's done well. There's always characters in movies. There's always many characters in movies. Just because one is dressed up as Green Lantern doesn't matter. You take the Green Lantern costume off and you take the ring off of him, he could just be, a friend of Superman. But you put that on him, what's the difference? It doesn't matter. People need to start using their brain and stop complaining and trying to compare it to what happened 10 years ago. It's getting ridiculous is all I'm saying. All right, now, moving on. There's some reports going on about Superman. And I guess Warner Brothers kind of messed up. And did they mess up? Was it that they messed up? Look, there's some worry that Warner Brothers didn't put enough films or big films out this year. This from Variety says, I guess there's some high stakes for Superman. It's relaunching the DC universe under the direction of Gunn and Safran. The film is the studio's best hope at fielding a billion-dollar blockbuster in 2025. But even the Man of Steel isn't impervious to box office kryptonite. The superhero adventure is arriving at bust times for the once impenetrable genre. That's a very important line to keep there. Now, whoever shared this highlighted this little aspect here. It says that there's a ticking clock for everyone at the studio. July 11th is D-Day, says Galloway, referring to the date that Clark Kent makes his theatrical return. If Superman can't storm the beaches of Normandy, a lot of people will be in trouble. Okay, now, essentially what this whole article explains is that Warner Brothers did not put a lot of big films out this year. A lot of them are more lower budget films, nothing that could catch the eye to possibly be a billion-dollar movie. One of the movies is Minecraft, which I think is going to be a flop. And that is, I guess, concerning to some. Now, obviously, as you see, it gets some people talking here, and some people are all like, oh, look, this isn't a good example, but there's some people like, oh, see, DC Studios is cooked, and James Gunn is cooked, and blah, blah, blah. The truth of the matter stands. This movie doesn't need to be a billion-dollar movie. It needs to be a successful movie, but it doesn't need to be a billion-dollar movie. But let's push that to the side. Can this movie be a billion-dollar movie? Can it? I said this in my billion-dollar hopefuls of 2025. Yeah, it can be. It absolutely could be a billion-dollar movie. It absolutely can be. I think out of all of the comic book movies this year, I think this has the best chances at exceeding expectations. And exceeding expectations for Superman would mean probably hitting $1 billion, because that would exceed the expectations. But why does it have a chance to do that? Well, first off, I've talked about the marketing. The marketing has been phenomenal. The teaser trailer at this point in time, just on YouTube, has 52 million views on YouTube after premiering on December 19th. It has 1.1 million likes. That is phenomenal numbers. It looks great. It has great numbers. Let's also not remember that Superman, officially the number 5 most viewed trailer of all time within the first 24 hours. In comparison, you have movies like Endgame, you have Deadpool and Wolverine, you have No Way Home. All movies that made $1 billion or more. Now, that's not saying that Superman can make $1 billion because the trailer did this. But it's in that pantheon. It's in the pantheon of trailers that hit those numbers, those types of numbers. It's in the top 5 of those trailers that all those movies hit $1 billion. So why is it not possible? Why do people think it's not possible? Well, let's go back to this here. This is a very interesting thing. The superhero adventure is arriving at bust times for a once impenetrable genre. I've been saying this for months, if not years, that the comic book movie genre is at a low point, is at a very low point. So when I talk about the money that Superman can make, it's not like it's going to make a shit ton of money because the comic book movie genre is at a big boom. That is an uphill battle for it. Now, if the movie is good, if it's exciting, absolutely, you can push that out, and that is not a factor. But remember, last week I showed an example that the medium range for box office for superhero movies right now is around $500 million. Compared to just a couple years ago when it was over 700 million, when it was 800 million, when it was almost $1 billion. So you can see that it has dropped drastically for the medium, for the box office intake for comic book movies. So if it can get over that medium, if it can get to that 600, 700, 800 million dollars, which is very possible, which is probably the expectation at $700 million range, and then it can surpass that expectation. If it's great, like it's expected to be, it surpasses that expectation, word of mouth is good, then $1 billion is possible. But what about Fantastic Four? What about Jurassic World just sitting on either end of it? Well, Jurassic World I don't think is going to move at this time. I think Jurassic World is pretty much going to sit in its date that it's going to release in the beginning of July. But Fantastic Four, I still believe, has a possibility of shifting. I do believe it does. And I think that that decision is going to come sometime after the release of Captain America. Captain America comes out on February 14th. February 14th is when Captain America Brave New World comes out. If that movie bombs, and I'm saying bombs, and I think it's a very good possibility that movie bombs, if it doesn't do well, I have a feeling that they're going to delay Fantastic Four a bit because they're going to want to separate it from that movie as much as possible. Because if Captain America bombs, that doesn't bode well for Thunderbolts. I don't think Thunderbolts is going to do very well then. Thunderbolts could do well, but I've been saying this as well. I think if both of those movies don't do well, it's going to hurt Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four has to do well for Marvel. They need that movie to do well. Now, all that goodwill from Deadpool and Wolverine, it's 8 months ago at this point. Is that going to carry over to Captain America? I don't think it's going to. So, if Captain America does poorly, then I think what happens is you're going to see Fantastic Four get pushed, which is going to leave a nice big spot open for Superman to do even better. Now, let's say Fantastic Four doesn't move. That doesn't mean that Superman can't do well. That doesn't mean that Superman can't do $1 billion. We've seen $900 to $1 billion two films happen. Look at Oppenheimer and Barbie. It's happened. We can see that happen. But it's going to be a little difficult for both those movies to battle to get $1 billion. But what if Fantastic Four isn't all that good? What if Superman is really good? You see, so that's kind of how it happens. That's how it's going to fall down. My opinion on this all is this. We know James Gunn is a good writer. We know that there's hype for this Superman movie. We know that people are interested to see what they're going to do with this Superman movie. We know that going into that. It has an uphill battle. We have to pull people back from the old DCEU mindset. Fantastic Four is a little bit different. Fantastic Four has the Marvel branding, but that also has an uphill battle from 3 not well-received Fantastic Four films. And it could have an uphill battle if the next 2 Marvel movies don't do well. So, there's a lot of things going on here. If Fantastic Four moves, I think that $1 billion is a really good shot. But a lot is riding on all this stuff right here. There's a lot just that's right there. I don't know. I think it's all really interesting. I know this video went a little long. I hope you all stuck around. If you did happen to stick around, kind of put down in the comments, maybe, little superhero guy in the comments. So I know you stuck around this long because this was a long one. But let me know your thoughts also with what you guys think. What do you think about this? Do you think it'll make $1 billion? I'm interested to know what you think. But with all that said, guys, I'll talk at all of you later.